Welcome to the Sweaty Dive Podcast, the podcast where we meet once a month to get sweaty over movies. I am one half of your hosts, known as Buff Charmander, joined as always by my good pal KG. And we're getting a little bit spooky, folks. This month we're talking about Barbarian, the 2022 kind of like shockingly successful horror/thriller movie starring only like 3 to 4 people, really. Some of whom you know, some of whom you might not know unless you're like really plugged into the TV scene. But regardless, we're here to talk about Barbarian as well as kind of a discussion about horror movies in general. We haven't really discussed horror movies as like a concept in, gosh, I want to say like a year maybe, or maybe even 2 years. It's been a while. I'll just start off by asking you this. Have your, like, over the past 2 years that we've been doing this pod, almost 2 years, have your thoughts and opinions on horror changed at all?
I would say they've changed in the sense that I am trying to force myself to watch more horror and scary movies. For those that have been listening, and you know this, of course, I'm a big old scaredy cat. I don't really like scary movies, hate haunted houses, things of that nature. Just not my thing. I've come to realize, though, that slasher flicks like, I don't know, Scream and Freddy vs. Jason, yeah, stuff like that, not only does that not scare me too much, but I'm kind of just like out on it because it's super predictable and it's just kind of like gross at points. Like I heard I didn't even watch it, but the most recent Halloween before Halloween Ends, the ending, spoilers, is just a massive murder scene where like 40 people try to mutilate him. He gets up, him being Michael Myers, and then he mutilates everybody in the most heinous and like most carnage way. And it's like, I don't really need that. So in terms of like horror and like chills films, I'm trying to find stuff kind of like Barbarian that is thought-provoking, it's tense, and I'm like, wow, like what is going on? And I'll tell you this, wow is how I'm going to describe this film, because just wow.
Yeah, so just so people know, going forward, we are full spoilers for this pod. We are full spoilers on every podcast that we talk here. So if you haven't watched Barbarian, please don't listen to this. Pause it here. I personally, I'm not sure about KG, but I will recommend you go watch this. Go to the theater to watch this, and then come back and listen to the pod. The structure for this month's pod, I thought it would be really fun because KG isn't much of a horror buff. He's like a former horror hater turned horror, maybe like appreciator or like learning to be an appreciator. I figured it would be really fun to talk through his experience with this film and with horror movies in general. So really this is kind of like the KG horror picture show of like, let's see where he's at, let's get his takes on things. It's kind of his car, and I'm just kind of driving it a little bit. But ultimately, I'm really excited about this, and I'm excited to talk about this movie because, and I'll get my thoughts out of the way real quick. I loved Barbarian. I thought it was the first act of Barbarian is maybe the scariest and most tense theater experience I've ever had in my life. I had to remind myself at one point, dude, chill out, your heart's racing too much, you're just watching a movie, relax. And then of course the mother walks in and bashes someone's head in. So you know, it's just a wild roller coaster of an experience. The extreme cuts to different locations, different settings, different energies throughout the movie, I thought it was very well done from a filmmaking perspective. It's well acted. It's kind of right up my alley of what I want in a horror movie, and I'm just kind of recommending it to everyone who I've talked to about movies over the past week. It's like my horror, it's not the same caliber of movie, not even close. Not to say that that's a bad thing. It's kind of like how I was with Everything Everywhere All at Once, where I just kind of want like, hey, please go watch this movie so we can talk about it. Please go watch this movie so we can talk about it. That's where I'm at. Here's the thing, though. I've had a week to digest this movie. You've had less than 24 hours. So, You have not told me anything about your thoughts about this movie. You told me that your girlfriend said, and I'm quoting here directly, "Can't say I loved it." Where are you at with Barbarian?
This is a film that I have had to marinate on, and it's kind of like before you learn how to really cook for yourself, you just start eating chicken, any way you can. Usually it's just chicken plain, and then you season it afterwards, and you realize it's probably not the best way to do it. So eventually you start throwing in those seasonings. You put all your marinades into a little baggie. You get your chicken in there, massage it around. 12 to 24 hours later, you cook it up, and boom, you got a nice slab of poultry there. This movie's fucked up. And I'm going to say that a lot, so excuse my language here, people, but holy Christ, was this movie just out of left field. And when I got out of the theater, my girlfriend and I talked about it for a little bit, and I simply just said, I don't know how to interpret this movie. And I told you that out of the movie, as soon as it ended, the man behind me, and I quote, excuse my language, he said, "Man, what the fuck? Fuck that shit. Second movie this week. I'm fucking out of here." And he left before his girlfriend left. He was bad-mouthing her because I guess she picked it, and he was like, "I'm over this. This is outrageous." And then she got up. She's like, "I'm sorry." It was a very funny film exchange or theater conversation exchange there. But the more I sit on this movie, and that man should apologize to his girlfriend because hopefully he marinated on it as well as I did. I like it a lot. Like, a lot. And I like it a lot because it is so weird. And I saw this trailer one time on YouTube because I just get all the movie trailer ads. And the trailer only shows you, at least the very first one I saw, I didn't even know Justin Long was in the movie. It only showed me like the first 10, 15 minutes. And it looked interesting. And I was like, I think I could do this. Like, it seems like it's going to be deeper than just a slasher or like something where someone's mutilated and tortured. Like, I could do it. And the first 20 minutes is that. And then when it hard cuts and Justin Long appears, I usually hate audience reaction, but I must say, I loved the theater experience that I had at AMC there. Initially, there were some D-bag teens that were just talking, and eventually this old man was like, "Hey guys, shut up." And I was like, "Thank you, old man. You're the man I want to be one day." But when it cuts, everybody audibly goes, "What the fuck? What is this?" And he's singing along in the radio, and I look at Sam, and she looks at me, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm along for the ride. And then it starts to develop. And the further I get in, as soon as I'm like locked in, it changes again. And I was like, okay, now I think I know what this guy's going for. And of course, me being me, I try to predict movies as I'm watching it. And I was wrong almost all the time. There was one time where he shoots our lead heroine, Tess. When he shoots Tess, I was like, he's definitely going to shoot Tess because she's not going to explain herself or anything. But I think what the director was doing was almost buying into those tropes and selling you hard on those tropes so that you might get 3 of the 4 right, but that 4th one you get so wrong that you question everything you've been doing in the film. And by the end of the movie, I was like, I don't know what I just watched. And then this morning, I was like, I kind of like this. And then as I got later in the day, I was like, I kind of love it. I don't know if I'd watch this again, but I would recommend this, like Everything Everywhere All at Once, to anybody who has any interest in film like this. It's intense, and it can get kind of gross. If horror's not really your thing, I don't know if you'd like it, but if you're interested at all, go in a theater. I was genuinely shocked at like how much I love the experience, and everybody was at the same page of like, what is going on? And I didn't care that people were saying what was going on because I was even like, I wish I knew. I have no idea.
This was, I'm glad you mentioned the theater experience. That's something that I wasn't even going to bring up because I'd forgotten about it. There were times where, and this doesn't always happen in horror movies, where like everyone was genuinely laughing, whether or not it was because there was a very funny sequence of an idiot in a torture chamber measuring it to see if he can sell his property higher for square footage, or because they couldn't believe what they just saw and they were like, I'm in such sheer shock that I can't help but laugh because it's the only emotion I have right now. It when that hard cut from the mother showing up, smashing Keith's head in, and roaring in Tess's face, to what was Justin Long's character's name? It was AJ. To AJ singing in the car in California, I turned to our friend, and he said to himself, and I'm just not going to bleep anything out of this one because it's going to be too hard to. He said out loud to us, he goes, "I'm going to shit my pants." Because we were just like, what is happening? I found myself laughing of like enjoyment throughout multiple moments like that in the movie where I'm just like, I can't believe this is a movie. I can't believe I'm watching this right now. This is an amazing experience. I love stuff like this. I love when I'm challenged as a moviegoer, because here's the thing with horror movies, right? You mentioned tropes. We kind of grew up as like children and teenagers in what, in my opinion, a kind of bleh period in horror movies where everything was very tropey. There was a lot of like, oh, there's this group of teenagers and they're gonna die. Like the type of movies that Scream was kind of mocking. We got a lot of those movies throughout our childhood and our like teenage years, and it kind of formed some of the things that we think happens in horror movies. And this movie just kind of turns so many of them right on their heads, including with actor choices, which I did not see coming at all. I want to talk about that first 20 minutes of the movie, or like that first act or whatever. For me, I mentioned how scared I was. Did you have that same feeling of like sheer tense kind of terror throughout that first 20 to 30 minutes?
Well, it's kind of like one time I was forced to go to this haunted house, and I was like, I really don't want to go, but like, whatever, it doesn't seem that bad. And then we're all in line, and they're like, yeah, by the way, we have to sign waivers, and like people may touch you. And I was like, I'm fucking out. I'm not in. I don't want to do this. I got sweaty. Like I was like going into a UFC cage match. I was like, I got to get out of here. So we agreed to do this movie, and I was like, I mean, I told you, it was like, I might pee or poo myself. I don't know. I might have to bring a diaper there. And you co-signed. You said, either way, I'm fine. I'll buy you a new pair of pants. So shout out you. But as the movie was starting, I was like, armpits are wet. I'm already too tense. Let's see what happens. And I ironically was more relaxed as the film was going, because I was like, I can kind of predict what's going on here. I'm not, like, I can almost try to get where the jump scare is going to be. If there was going to be a jump scare, which there usually wasn't when I thought there was, it would just kind of continue to play. I was like, all right, I know something's going to happen, so I can like pre-tense myself so I don't freak out. But the opening, I thought the opening was done really well. And my girlfriend actually pointed out that, and I thought about it more as this morning, when our main protagonist there, Tess, and she pulls up to the house and she's waiting, like it is pitch black, and it's like black, like you can't see a thing but that light. And they even do a smart thing of, there's a lot of like behind the head camera angles and a lot of POV shots, and she scans left to right and you don't see a thing, no streetlights or anything. And you get into the house, and at some point Skarsgård is saying like it's a bad neighborhood, and my girlfriend whispers to me like, Hollywood needs to do a better job of understanding what bad neighborhoods look like, because this Airbnb is way too nice. Like, if this is supposed to be a bad neighborhood, then they better jazz it up or whatever. Not only 5 minutes later, it's now day. She finally understands her surroundings, and it's a shit hole. And I was like, wow.
It looks burnt down.
Yeah, it looks like it shouldn't. It's totally condemned. But I thought it was very smart to have the audience like, I didn't even think that of the whole like Hollywood needs to portray it like more worse. That was a great point by her. But when they finally open up to daylight, I was like, wow. Like I didn't even think about it. Just like the movie, just like our main actress there didn't think about it. Why are we here? Like, this is bad. And it was a good job of making her show up like towards midnight, I'd assume, because otherwise she probably would have been like, maybe I could figure something else out if it was like 2 p.m.
Yeah. So I'm kind of glad we're going through it like beat by beat. What did you think when you saw Skarsgård's Keith be the person? Because, all right, here's the thing. I didn't see a trailer going into this movie. I heard from like 3 different critics who I frequent, know as little as you can going into this movie. Mm-hmm. And I stopped reading every single one of their opinions and just went, okay, I'm just going to go watch it.
Well, the trailer that I saw shows her meeting him. They talk for a little, then the door opens and something happens, like someone's screaming. It's a very vague trailer. It only shows that first 20 minutes. So me trying to guess, I assume that he would try to play nice. They go downstairs, he acts like he's hurt or something, and then he traps her, and then it's a movie of how does she escape from this terrible guy. But I thought it was smart to cast him as, honestly, probably like the quote-unquote good guy of the film, because he's it. He's Pennywise the Clown in those It films. So I was waiting for him at some point to be like a dastardly evil man with that, like, Amanda Dobbins actually described it very well. Shout out Big Pick, like a scary hot face, you know? Like someone who you don't really trust, but you're like, he's not ugly though. Maybe I'll give him the time of day for like 2 minutes, and then I'll run away. But when Mother comes out and mutilates his face, I had to crawl into my girlfriend's arms and just pray for protection, because holy Christ, did that get me. And then when it ended, I was like, for a hot second, I was like, no way did we pay like $30 for a 24-minute movie. And if so, that's kind of baller. Like, I thought the movie would just stop. But then it continues. And then I was like, all right, I would have been pretty pissed, but also I would have respected it if it was such a kept secret that it's a 24-minute film and no one is telling you that it's only a 24-minute film. Because in and of itself, that could be a crazy short film.
Yeah.
Like, if you just segmented that and you're like, film school, here you go. This is how you can do one set in a horror film or a thriller, or how you can open something or segue from one to another. It can be used a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I thought, the filmmaking that's on display in that first act, I mean, throughout the whole movie, but that first act in particular, is just, it's tremendous, to be honest. The camera work, like you were mentioning, it's truly genius how much there's like setup and you have to look. And one thing that I was very privy to going into this movie was Stuckman, when he was talking about this movie, he had said, make sure you're paying attention. Like, don't look away. Look at everything on the screen. Even stuff like a door closing. You need to remember that door just closed. Because you don't want to be disoriented about it like our lead is. Did she close that door? No, I saw it. Yeah, she definitely did. So why is it open right now? But why is it open and he's sleeping still? Mm-hmm. What's going on here? She looked around the neighborhood. I saw the silhouettes of these houses. Were they like that? Was it that pitch black and I didn't notice? So that type of stuff matters, and I love that. Or even like how much they're looking around, like in the basement. Is that a rope there? What does that do? And we're kind of experiencing this whole movie through the eyes of Tess in like a really successful way. And when that turn happened, I didn't expect there to be a monster. Can I tell you what my theory was throughout the first act?
Yeah, please.
I thought the entire movie was going to be a bait and switch. I thought there was going to be, at the end, nothing scary happened. It was just the idea of something being scary was the whole... I thought that was the whole movie. Something could happen, so I'm terrified.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, that would... in my head, I'm like, this is going to be so cool. No, a giant naked woman is out here bludgeoning people to death with cages around her. Okay. Cool. All right, I'm in. I'm still in.
I don't want to be in, but I'm in.
Yeah.
I want to go home, but I'll finish it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm edging my seat. It's amazing. Okay, now, flip happens. We talked about the theater experience. What was yours and your girlfriend's, like, I don't know if you looked at each other when the flip happened to California. Was there a noise?
Yeah, like we looked at each other, we were like, what is going on? And then I'm like, Justin Long, I love that guy. Like, he's from Accepted. Why is he in this film? And then I started to think, like, he has done some low budget horror films. I know the one that is like the grossest that I still haven't seen and honestly don't know if I have the stomach for. It's called Tusk. I think Kevin Smith directed it. I saw the end. I already know what happens. A man becomes a walrus. I don't need to see all that. I heard it's good. I'm good. I know the premise. Good for Justin Long. Good for Kevin Smith. And I know he was in like Jeepers Creepers 1, I think. So he has some horror background. But when he came, I was like, this is such a tonal change. Because I always picture Justin Long as the guy from Accepted. And if you haven't seen that, great underrated college film. But I was like, wow, I was shocked. And then he starts singing this song and it's just a complete tonal shift. And I was like, I don't know where this is going. And then as his story progresses, then it shows his connection. And when he gets there, his character was a piece of shit. And I'll go into a little detail with that later. But I thought he was awesome in his role as who he was supposed to be.
So let's talk about like story structure real quick. Did you find, because I mean, again, we talked about tropes earlier. Did you find the change of pace? I mean, it's a jarring change of pace, to be perfectly honest, but I found it to be like a delightful, jarring change of pace. Did you like those hard cuts that the film took not once but twice?
Thinking about it more, I like the hard cuts because it kept me asking more questions and it kept me more intrigued into the film. I was never bored. And initially, when I left the film, I was like, I don't know if I really like this. I know that I was reacting a lot. I know that I was scared, but I don't know if this was like good. But I think those hard cuts are creative because I talked to my one friend and he said, like, this movie sucked. And he straight up said, like, I hated this movie. But I think, and this is going to sound like very snobby, he watched the movie for like what he believed it should have been and not like what it was. And I feel like a lot of people may watch the film and be like, well, now we know what the monster is, so why do we continue to go? Like, it's like, why'd you show us already? All right, now we know what happened, and then you do all this weird stuff. Like, why do you have all that extra stuff? Just go back to what we were watching. And I understand that, but if you do watch this film, and I agree with you, I recommend watch it, see it in the theater, sit on it for like another day or two and just think about it, and then think of other horror movies you may like or dislike. I think the hard cuts are super creative and unique because it just keeps you guessing. And I guess till the end. And when it ended, I was surprised it ended. Because I know it's only an hour 40. But at that moment, I was trying to figure out, like, okay, we have to be probably at Act 3 by now, but I don't know what the hell is going to happen at this point because now she's outside the house and I didn't know if she would leave. And this homeless guy is the best exposition delivery ever. Like, I want him in all my movies. I thought they also did a good job with him, making him seem like he was the crazy ghoul or whatever when the woman tried to get back into her home. But I was a fan of the hard cuts. Again, it took me a second, but once I like really sat and thought about it, I thought it was a creative way of telling the story and not making it so linear, but kind of like Tarantino style. You're telling it out of order to get it back into order and in sequence eventually.
Yeah, like eventually you get all once the traveling back in time for the story. Once that happens, I was kind of at peace with the story in terms of like, okay, I can kind of see what happened here. Maybe not understanding all of it. Like there could have been like a Frankenstein's monster sort of situation here. There could have what wound up happening was way worse.
Yeah,
horrible. But I thought once we got, I mean, again, I was loving it while it was happening, but once we got to what the answers were, I was fully like, okay, I'm coherent in this, and I am now just locked into how this is gonna go. Were you upset at all when Skarsgård dies in the first 30 minutes of the movie?
I don't know if upset's the right word. I was scared shitless. When Mother bashed his head in multiple times. I think that was the gory part you told me about to warn my girlfriend more. So I forgot to tell her. And then the movie was on. Her little, oh my God, little face covering. But I was like stunned. And now I understand, like, that is something, you know, like when you watch a movie and like a boulder's coming and someone's just like, oh no. And they just stare. And you're like, fucking move. Like, it is so far away. That is one of the few moments I've ever seen in a movie where I am like, I get why you didn't run. I understand why you didn't move. Because I also would have been picking up my poo-poo and backing away slowly. It was shocking. And you see the creature, Mother, you see what she does, and the camera like focuses on his head being bashed in, and it is brutal. And it's kind of like you're almost watching it as if you were like Tess. And it made sense as to why like this is so chilling and horrible and just I can't process that all I can do is just stand there and then hope that I'm not next.
And that's what she did, and then she wound up being okay. How did the so now I want to ask you about the genius of this movie with subverting expectations. You almost have two leads for this film. You have Tess and then you have AJ, because AJ kind of Justin Long carries the movie for like the entire middle section of it. It's basically just him going Shakespearean, basically, with how much he carries the camera with him. I'm really kind of sad that Justin Long didn't become like a Hollywood megastar. I feel like he's a really talented guy, and maybe he just chose to be very selective with what he did. But selfishly, I would have loved to seen him in more stuff. This sounds nuts when you hear it, but I think I'm correct here. I always thought that if you were to have like a, because if you ever seen him in interviews, he's a really tender guy. He seems really lovable and sweet. I think if you were to have a very specific type of like Superman story, I thought Justin Long would have been a really great Superman just because of his presence and his calming nature. I think he's just great at that type of thing. And again, I hope that post Barbarian, a mid 40s onwards, Justin Long has this like skyrocketing of his career and isn't just like the guy from the comedies or just the guy from Barbarian now. I hope he kind of becomes, no, that's the Justin Long. He can't really walk around ShopRite anymore because he's too famous, you know? I want that for him because I think he's so talented. I thought he was brilliant in that second act. The measuring scene, I was like near cackling in the theater because the brilliance of it. How long the let me get the director's name so I don't just keep calling
It's Zach Greger. We saw his acting, I don't know, debut because he was in a comedy troupe. Do you remember that really bad movie, Miss March?
Hold on,
it's like his girlfriend dumps him and then she becomes a Playboy model and he goes on this journey to go find her.
Dude, I totally remember. That's him?
Yeah, that movie sucked. And he admitted that the movie was not good, and that kind of messed him up for a while. But I forgot that was him.
Dude, this is him?
Yeah.
With the guy, the character who was supposed to be the funny guy with the long hair?
Yep.
Who wasn't all that funny, unfortunately. I remember watching this at your house when we were like 12.
Yeah, because they were like, boobs. That's going to be good. And it was not.
I literally remember us watching this in your room. That's
exactly.
So funny.
I was blown away when I found out this guy was the director of this film.
Oh, dude, this guy's so talented. Okay, I'm in on Zach Greger. Let's go. Pump out more stuff, dude. I want to see this. Gosh, that's amazing. But his decision to just kind of hold on the takes of him just measuring the square footage, not even showing in focus the bloody camera, the bucket of blood next to him, allowing this character to be so self-absorbed that he doesn't recognize the gravity of what's going on around him. Mm-hmm. I thought that was genius. Did it work for you?
No, I loved it. And the whole theater was laughing. Some people were like, this is stupid, this is annoying, but a lot of people were just like, what is going on? And I thought it was hilarious. He was so good at it. And I think he's good at it because he's like the polar opposite of that kind of person, like you mentioned. He's a vile human being. But then I thought the rest of the film, I was like, okay, maybe once he's down there. I mean, tape measuring aside, hilarious. Loved it. I thought it was great. He's very self-absorbed. When they finally escape the house, I'm like, okay, maybe he's getting a little like redemption arc, you know? Like, bad dude does bad thing, and then he keeps saying, like, maybe I'm a bad guy, maybe I can help this girl. Like, he goes back. When he throws her off of the water tower, I was blown the fuck away. I had no idea that was coming. I genuinely thought they were going to have this POS make a huge turn and either sacrifice himself or kill the monster or do something. And, like, the movie would end with him still going to jail for doing that deplorable thing. But when he throws her off the water tower, she survives, and then the mother rips him in half by taking out his eyes. I was like, that's justice. That is justice. And I thought it was genius. Because, again, it completely subverted my expectation. And I honestly just laughed when his head was ripped in half. I was like, this is insane.
So, remember when I texted you saying there's one or two gruesome
That was
scenes?
number 2.
I couldn't remember if they showed the eyes being gouged out or if I just thought that that's what happened. But no, they show her like pressing into his skull. It's insane. Yeah, one of the more satisfying movie deaths I've seen in a long time, actually. Yeah. Like, I remember fist pumping, like, in the air, like, yes, okay, good. When he throws, we're just jumping around here. When he throws her off, when he throws Tess off the water tower, and the mother leaps down, was your theater laughing?
We weren't laughing. Well, some people were laughing. I kind of laughed because I was just like, what is going on? Like, I couldn't physically figure out what the hell was happening and what was going to happen next.
I heard multiple people behind me go like this. like letting out like loud chuckles.
Were they 12?
No, these are grown men being like, what? Like, because
it's jarring to say the least.
Yeah, this movie is, it just kind of takes you for the ride, and I think that it's best to just kind of go along with it. And if you're, I mean, who knows? If you're someone listening to this this pod and you didn't like the movie, maybe after listening to us kind of gush about it a little bit or talk through it, maybe give it a second go. Go check out what happened. We haven't really talked about the third, or I'm sorry, the third act. But is that the third act or the second act? The structure of the movie kind of flipped me on my head. The first flashback, I should say, the initial flashback sequence, when they go back to the 80s, I want to say.
Yeah, because it's the Reagan administration, so it's like mid 80s in Detroit.
How did that work for you? Because I thought, just from a filmmaking perspective, it felt like I was watching an artist paint a picture, to be honest.
Yeah, I love the changing color, the lenses, the visuals just as a whole. It was much more vibrant and brighter. It had that, like, quote-unquote 80s Reagan hope. Like, things are going to turn around, the economy's going to boom and everything. But the actor that they got to play, his name was Frank. His name is Richard Brake, I believe. He's in a bunch of different movies. He usually always plays like a creepy-looking dude because he just kind of has that face. But when he became our protagonist, or I guess our protagonist for that portion, we were following him. The way that like the camera looks at him first, and he starts walking towards his car, it flips around, and then it's just like a lot of following him documentary style. I was fascinated. I was very into it. I liked that. And I had a feeling he was not up to something good, because don't want to judge a book by its cover, but I'm judging here. He didn't look the most trustworthy. And I like that you don't see the house, the inside, until the end of the flashback. I also do appreciate that we did not see those horrible acts, because I don't need that. And through what the film has shown, it shows the videotapes, it shows Justin Long watching the tapes. We know what happened, how deplorable this man is, and I appreciate the director not saying like, all right, we need 2 actors to go do this. That's something I didn't need. Because in other movies like this, they may do something like that, and then I'm like, I'm good. That's too much, I'm out. They did just enough to scare me and shock me without like making me feel gross. You know what I mean?
So, yeah, 100%, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about. We're still talking about this movie, but we're also going to be talking about horror movies in general from here on out for the pod. So I personally, I don't like body horror at all. It's not my thing. It makes me want to shut it off. Like, it's not. There's a term in. I might have said it on this podcast before, but there's a term in wrestling called go-away heat. Heat in wrestling is a good thing. It's when a bad guy, aka a heel, is able to get the character to the point where the audience hates them, which is called heat. Go-away heat is not what you want, though. It's when the audience is sick of you and doesn't want to watch you anymore. There's a couple of wrestlers out there who are like that. Body horror has go-away fear for me. Like, no, I'm good. I don't want to go spend my money to watch this thing. The Saw franchise, I respect what it is. I respect people who love it. Not for me.
I am in a total agreement there.
So you're not a body horror guy?
No, I'm good. But, and I might have mentioned this before, like, a movie like Predator, where he's ripping the spines out of someone, or it's Terminator, where it's like shoot them up in explosions. That to me is suspension of disbelief, where I'm just watching explosions and I can turn my brain off, and like I might appreciate what's going on, but it's not going to change my life. It may not win any Oscars here, but it's just a cool action movie, whatever. But when I'm watching someone like held down, mutilated, and like there's like real fear, just grotesque, like if it can like really happen, that's when I get from like I'm scared to now I'm almost like I gotta leave, because I don't feel comfortable watching this, and I don't feel comfortable telling people like I watch this, because then I'm curious like what they may think of me.
Yeah.
You know?
And the acts that this the name of the guy is Frank, the character. The acts that he is performing in particular, I'll be real with you, I think if they had shown that, I think I would have walked out of the theater.
Oh yeah, that's stuff that does not need to be shown. The tape's enough. The title of the tape, artistfully, I hope that's the right word, like artistically enough, shows what happened. You can read those, put together what happened, and you're like, wow, that's gross. And
look, film is a visual medium. One of the first lessons you probably learn in film school is show, don't tell. Some things do not apply there.
And they didn't even really talk about what happened. It was more of, you could just see, you could see without actually telling. the only time you ever hear it is from the homeless man who finally says, like, that creature is the daughter of a daughter of a daughter, like, just gross. But they don't actually ever say it. It's just kind of like for you to figure out. And I didn't put it together till just about when I kind of thought it was like one of those Hills Have Eyes things where the guy had babies and never let them leave the house. You know, like those Hills Have Eyes people, it's like they never saw the sun and then they go out and it's like, oh, crazy. Yeah. But this was way worse. Way worse. And then when I think the tapes might be right before they meet the homeless guy, right? There's no cut back. So then when he finally lays that out, I'm like, not only now do I get it, but Jesus Christ. Like, this is messed up. And then you almost feel bad for the creature.
Because... Oh, I did for sure by the end. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you've killed all these people, like you're scary looking, whatever, but it's like you weren't meant to like be there. Like this is all just a giant mistake and gross.
Well, that's why at the end, you know, it's in a lot of horror movies you see the protagonist take down the monster at the end. Here in this movie, I don't think it was that. I think it was more so...
like putting him out of his misery.
Yeah, like ending the mother's suffering. Because you can only imagine how much pain the mother was in. It also just got hit by a car and fell off a building.
Yeah.
So there was probably some internal damage there. So she kind of did a humane act by shooting the mother. So... yeah, I thought that it was very well done. I mean, from the moment that he walks into that unsuspecting woman's house as like an electrician or whatever, you kind of like, okay, this is...
And when he unlocks the window, I mean, number one, just watching her, and I like how it's shot.
Oh, yeah.
He's in the parking lot, he drives for a little bit, hard cut to home. Like, you don't need to show that whole thing. They don't show Justin Long's flight to Michigan. He just ends up there and you know he's there because he's talking to his lawyer and name drops like, I'm now in Detroit. I thought those subtle things were good because you could have made the movie like another 20 minutes longer if you show all that stuff, but it would have just detracted because now you're just watching more like the benefits of having a shorter movie, man. You get in, you get out, you hit what you need and you're done. Like you're not making people wait. You're not preventing the inevitable solution that people can kind of come to, you know? And this movie does not always have inevitable solutions. It definitely keeps you on your toes. But I do, like, for as much as I want a 2-hour and 40-minute Batman film, like, get me with that minute 36 film. I'm trying to watch in and out. I'm trying to enjoy myself, go do something else.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. So, we've talked about most of the movie. Did you find the end to be satisfying?
I was shocked that it ended. Like, when she pulls the trigger and it just says written and directed by, I was like, oh, okay, so it's over. Like, there's no more hard cuts. I expected one more hard cut. But I think overall I was satisfied because the story it told, the girl survives. She put down mother, Justin Long, done. And he also, going back to his whole story, I don't know how the legal process works, but he admits to the terrible act that he did to that girl. So hopefully she finds some justice too. So it's kind of like all those loose ends are tied up.
Yeah, is there anything that's not tied up? Well, there's like some stuff in the early stages of the movie that aren't touched on, but they're not like major story threads. So just
what did you think of the boyfriend? I'm going to assume it's her boyfriend. What was his name? Mazer or Mark or something? Marcus,
I think. Marcus? Yeah, we're going to go with Marcus here. You know, man, I'll be honest. I completely, after seeing Keith and then going on that entire ride for the rest of the movie, I forgot about Marcus entirely until our buddy, the Ginger Gorilla, mentions when we were in the parking lot talking about the movie, and he goes, so what was up with that Marcus phone call? And I went, oh my gosh, the Marcus phone call.
Do you think it could have been just like a monkey wrench to get our brains thinking here when they should be thinking here? Or do you think it's something that we can just read into later? Like maybe she's it's a bad breakup and she's trying to start over somewhere else.
I think it was one of two things. I think it could be that, or it could have been a lead into the possible budding romance between Tess and Keith.
That never happens.
Yeah, but it's you can see it. It's like, oh, she likes him.
Yeah.
You know, she's looking at his driver's license picture. A little creepy, by the way.
Yeah, that was that was weird. Don't look at the mugshot and think to yourself, like, cute. Nah, that's weird. And if I was Keith and I found out you took a photo of my ID and then you were looking at it all nice, like, I'd be offended.
And black and white, that's another thing where they, like, really make you think Keith is, like, a bad guy. The fact that his driver's license is, like, black and white, like, yours is not black and white, is it? Mine is in color.
He looks like he invented jail.
Yeah.
In that photo.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, this is weird. I mean, I love the portion where she meets the documentarian and she's like, you're staying where?
And now
you need to not be there.
So here's a question. Is Mother an urban legend in that area? Or is she just saying it's burned down and deplorable, don't go? Because the homeless dude clearly knows her. Those cops clearly don't seem to care.
What I'm thinking is that it's just that bad of an area. That she's like, you're staying in a house there, sort of thing.
Okay.
Because you would have to imagine if everyone knew there was a monster there, she would say like, hey, you're probably going to die. Seriously, go home. Don't even go back to get your stuff. Just go home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you would imagine if it was a legend that the cops would be like, "Hey, look, we get it, but that guy's dead." You know, like don't. I get that there's a human in there. Like we believe you, but no, it's. But instead, they were more so like, "This is no. What are you even talking about?" In fact, that story made her seem like the homeless guy seemed to her earlier on in the film.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the thing, and there are portions of the movie where you're like, but wait, why are they renting out this property? You shouldn't be allowed here.
And who, if Justin Long is not approving this, who's in charge of the website? How are they getting double booked? At first, I thought it was maybe the old man. But then I was like, that guy can't even get out of bed. There's no way he could do that. I know Mother's not doing it. So part of me thinks that these things are there just to make you think after the movie's over. And if you didn't like the movie, you don't care. You're like, not only did I hate it, but this was also stupid. And why did we do this? But if you're into it and you really think about it, I think those things add to extra thought. I'm sure you have another question for me, but real quick, can you recall the biggest reaction your theater got in the movie? Because I have a very, very subtle scene that our whole theater was like, oof.
The biggest reaction? Like the biggest jump?
Could be jump, could be laugh, whatever.
The biggest... Oh, man. It might have been, like, the loudest, like... might have been when the mother burst through the wall and ripped... let me get his name. Ripped Andre's arm off of his body and then bludgeoned him to death with it. That was the biggest gasp, I would say.
All right, so that's definitely up there for me because I was even like, Jesus Christ. And once he's like, I've been living here 15 years. She's never been here. I was like, you're dead. Yeah. And not only does she kill him, but then kills him twice. Our biggest wow, like, oof, was when Justin Long threw the MacBook. When he closes the MacBook and he throws it like a frisbee onto the dresser, everybody's like, oh, you can't do that. That's an expensive computer. And I thought it was hilarious that everybody in unison was like, oh, not cool, man. And that was like his personification of being a dick. He can't get in, so he fucking frisbees that thing. And that's like a $2,000 device. Like, what are you doing? But I thought that was just very funny that everybody was like, we're scared, but oh my God, not the computer.
He might be the least likable character in a movie all year.
And it's almost like subtly unlikable.
Sometimes
because he's not overtly, yes, but like I feel like he could he's not like a evilish cartoonish villain, and then when he throws her, I'm like, okay, no, you are the worst human, and it's super good that your face got ripped in half
after shooting Tess in the stomach.
Yeah, but devil's advocate, Tess, the whole movie you go down that hallway and you're like, Keith, where are you? You're gonna go down to find the guy who's been sucking on some titty, and you're not gonna scream his name once. You're just gonna
I didn't ask you about how.
I had to look away. I had to look away. And that bottle, did they go to Acme Warehouse at Cartoon Store for that baby bottle? And I thought she's like, just drink it.
If you want to make it out of here alive,
so
drink
all
the
you
bottle.
milk guzzlers out there, go watch this movie, then come talk to us,
dude.
If you want to make her happy, just drink it.
Did you see the long hair at the end of it?
And Tess didn't just have like a sip; she had like a guzzle. And just so I was like, no.
We don't know how long she was down there. How many?
They don't have fridges. They don't have fridges.
Oh.
And those bottles aren't rinsed and lathered and boiled.
That was rough to think about.
That was honestly probably the most vile part because I was like, "You're not going to show that." I was like, "Oh my god, they're going to show that."
What was the girlfriend's reaction to that?
I mean, I was so locked into my own space, I can't really tell, but I know we were both shuddering at the same time.
She didn't mention it on the ride home.
Not to my knowledge. She was really just kind of like shocked by the whole experience. But I will acknowledge that as the movie progressed, we did get closer, and not like in a lovey cutaway. We were like, "I'll save you if you save me. We will help each other out of this situation."
Gotcha. Can you do me a favor?
Yes, please.
Can you text her real quick and ask her for a 1 out of 10 rating or 1 to 10 rating for the movie? And then if she responds before we're done, you can say what it is out loud.
Oh, of course, I got you.
Yeah, just because I'm curious, because it's good to get the opposite end of the spectrum for how we're feeling on this movie. So, all right, we've kind of talked about everything that there is to talk about with Barbarian. I would say. I kind of want to transition over to just kind of horror movies in general. What gets you personally to go see a horror movie? I'll go first just because you're still, crafting a text message.
Thank you.
Shakespeare. It's, for me, the first thing, oddly enough, is word of mouth. I need to hear that this movie's good. Because, again, we grew up in this time period where there was such a large amount of mediocre to bad horror movies that I just kind of never really found a love for them. Like a lot of movie fanatics and film critics love horror movies, and I never really understood why until I became an adult and I started realizing, oh, there's some like really good stuff in here. So I need to hear that it's good. I need to hear from the right people that it's good. Once that happens, I'll be willing to check it out. If someone says to me, do not look anything up and go watch it, I'll be honest, I'm in. Like Get Out, kind of a horror movie, but horror thriller, I guess. Heard that, I was like, okay, I'm in. Cool. Us, the same thing.
I have an answer.
Okay, go ahead.
Quote, that's hard to do right now. Maybe a 6.
Much better than I thought.
Agreed.
I was expecting like a 4.
I also was assuming 4, but maybe she's just being generous and giving a 6. But interesting.
Yeah, it's good. But that's kind of it for me. I need to hear that it's good. There needs to be some sort of mystery there. Also, like in the case of It, an excellent trailer will hook me. If a trailer's good enough, It, The Conjuring, Hereditary, I'm in. Those are like my 3 favorite horror movies as well. So
yeah,
that kind of helps. What gets you to go see a horror movie?
Honestly, if you say I can watch it and I would like it, I'm in. Because you know my taste very well. One of my older sisters, she loves all these kinds of films, so she's like, yeah, go, you'll love it. She just wants me to be tortured, so I don't really trust her opinion. But I would agree, a strong trailer, a trailer that doesn't show much, but has me enticed. And I would say Barbarian did have a very enticing trailer because I saw the one, and I did think to myself, like, oh, this is interesting, this seems good. Word of mouth for sure. Really, a lot of the things you were just saying, and like, of course, like a high Rotten Tomatoes score is great or whatever. But like, if it's trusted sources, like I'd say you because you know my taste, and after that, if like Stuckman agrees or people from The Ringer that we listen to, if they also say like, even if it's not your thing, go watch it because it's such a good experience, then it's almost like I'm doing myself a disservice if I don't go. And there's going to be times where people will say you may leave not liking it, and it's kind of hard to watch. Then at that point, I might be more hesitant. But I didn't hear any of that with this. So, yeah.
Do you prefer horror movies at home or in a theater?
I like my house because I'm safe in my house, but ideally you should do it in the theater. I think A Quiet Place is best served in a theater, both one and two, just because, well, Quiet Place is special because you really got to like focus. But I think the horror atmosphere, it's like in a theater you can't escape. You can't, unless like you don't care. You can't pull out your phone. You can't talk to the person next to you. You can't leave the room. You're just locked in, and it's you versus the movie. And it's either you're going to survive or you won't. And that sounds extreme, but either you're going to physically leave because you can't take it anymore, or you're going to power through for what it is and enjoy it. So, like Barbarian just being one of the few horror movies that have seen in theater, and I would say more horror than thriller because I can stomach thriller more. Get Out to me is scary, but it's more thrilling to me than it is like haunting. One of my favorites, The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing. That's more of like a Predator film where it's scary at points, but it's mainly like us versus the alien. How can we kill it? With this movie, I was like, the more I challenged myself to watch it and keep going, the more exhilarated I was, the more fun I had. And then by the end, I was like, good job on me. I deserve some dessert. I made it through. And then I had cake.
So this is like an umbrella question, but I have like sub stuff for it. So let's focus more on like the subcategories for it. The umbrella question is, what makes a good horror movie to you? But we'll break that up because these next couple questions will kind of tell us that. As a non-horror lover, do you need to experience fear for a horror movie to be good?
I mean, scared is good. Nervous and uncomfortable. Basically, I need the horror movie to feel like it could happen. And we may have talked about this before when we covered either Quiet Place or we were just talking about another film in general. If I think that it can happen in real life, I'm way more scared. So this is scary because Mother looks scary. But like, I can see someone having a devil dungeon in their basement. And I could see this going on. And there's a movie, As Far So Below, I believe. It's about these people going down into the French catacombs. Underneath France, they basically have like a small city of just skeletons where they buried everybody. And that movie is very claustrophobic and very scary. But there's one point in the movie where something like supernatural happens, and I was so taken out. I was like, I'm not scared anymore. This is such a departure from what I was watching. Like, yeah, there were scary parts, and even after that, there were still some scary parts, but I was like, I've now suspended the disbelief so the opposite way of how this was going. I don't really care anymore. And it was like a little upsetting because I was into the movie. I was like, wow, I don't like this. It is definitely scary and intense. But when they showed that very supernatural scene in a movie that was very grounded, I was just not in. On the other side, though, if I go to see like a supernatural type film, then that's what I'm going to see. So I have to like suspend that disbelief. It's more my fault if I don't. Because it's like, yeah, dude, it's wizards. Like, what did you think? They're not going to be driving Priuses. Like, okay, you chose to go see that.
Interesting. Okay, so did you like? So with that said, how did you feel about It?
I thought was not that good. I thought the scariest parts of It when he was just a clown. I thought the end was bad because, like, when he became a spider in the house, it was too much CGI. At the end, when like kids are floating, it's too much CGI. If they just had him walk around as a normal person, that was scary as shit. If he just grabbed those kids and did whatever, that's scary. Like, when there's too much CGI use and I know that it's fake, I just get personally pulled out hard.
Okay. What's your favorite horror movie?
In terms of like Barbarian style or like thriller horror?
In general, whatever you consider the umbrella term horror movie.
I like Get Out a lot. I'm trying to think there was another one. Hereditary was good, but I was like really freaked out by that one. Like really freaked out at the end when the husband goes on fire. I guess being freaked out was good.
See, that wasn't the scene that got me. The scene that got me with Hereditary.
Oh, when her head comes off.
When, not the child. When the mom does it to herself.
Oh my god.
That I was like, I watched that in my room alone at midnight, and when that happened, I like had to pause the movie for a second and be like, Oh my gosh, I cannot believe what I just saw.
What is your top horror film?
So I will go. I have a top three. So I'll try to order it. I'll probably go The Conjuring as my number one, just because that was the first time I ever saw a horror movie and went, "Oh, this can actually be really good stuff." The Conjuring is my one. And these are all like recent stuff because again, I got into horror movies much sooner to now than like earlier in my life. I'll go Hereditary at 2. And then I'm going to go with Insidious at 3 because Insidious was the first horror movie I think I ever saw in a theater. I watched The Conjuring and I watched Hereditary at home. Insidious I saw with our friends, and when the Darth Maul looking guy pops up onto screen, that was the first time I ever like got jump scared in a movie like that, and I was like, "Oh, I get it now." I get why people do this. Okay.
Oh, I get it now.
Yeah. So those are my favorites. And this is, by the way, Barbarian. Real quick before you give yours, unless you don't have one right now, I think Barbarian is one of the best movies I've seen this year.
Really?
Yeah, I do. It's been. I'll be perfectly, maybe even rudely honest. This year has been a little underwhelming. There was supposed to be a lot of really good stuff. Some movies that we were excited to talk about on the pod, but turned out to not be worth the discussion. The second half of the year in particular has been kind of ugly in terms of film. So I think this is kind of up there for me. But if you have an answer for a favorite horror movie, you can feel free. Or if you have a reaction to what I just said, feel free.
I mean, I'm really just getting into them, so I'm trying to think. But there was one that I saw a few years ago that was kind of interesting. There's one on Netflix. It's set like in Norway. It might be called The Relic. These, I believe it's either Norway or Sweden. These dudes go on a camping trip and like things just start happening, and there's like a Norse god involved. It gets a little fantastical, but that one was very intense. And there's another one called The Invitation. I think there's a new movie called The Invitation, but this one came out like in 2014 or 2015. A group of people go to a dinner party and things just start getting wild. Very scared. Did not want to finish the film, but I did. But I thought that was very good. I definitely have to expand my palette, but I will take more time.
The Babadook, also very good.
Never seen it. That one I've never seen.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Okay, so I recommend that one because it's not necessarily scary, but it's a horror movie.
All right, interesting.
Like, it's tense. There's one scene that's going to make you go, ugh, if you're watching it at night. And it's in the trailers. It's where you see the guy, and he's like, it's like an upside down shot, and he's like, he sounds like a pterodactyl. And you're just like, what am I looking at? That's the one time you ever get scared in the movie, but outside of that, it's like actually like a really compelling story.
Oh, you know which one really got me? Now I'm thinking about it because now I gotta hit Google here to remember. I guess I was just so scared I blocked a lot of these out. Number one, there are many genres of horror that I don't necessarily agree with. Whatever. But Paranormal Activity 2, I think it's the sequel where at the end the person goes outside. If you haven't seen this, I'm ruining the movie for you. It's the second or third one. Somebody goes outside to like run away from people who are trying to kill them, and then they're just surrounded by all these people. I saw that movie. My sister like basically forced me to go with her now husband. It was me. The theater was packed. We were like front row towards the left. And it was like, again, one of the best communal theater experiences because everyone was just as scared the entire time. Like, don't go in there, don't do this. Oh my God. But when the movie ended and like you thought your protagonist got out safe and it was just like, no, they opened into more danger and everybody's like, no. Just like blood curdling screams. That scared me a lot. And now like when I watched the first one, like it's scary, but it's like once you see it, you saw it. But seeing that, it was either the second or the third, but seeing that for the first time, not knowing what was going on, I was scared. And I was not happy that I saw it. Not happy at all.
That's fair. Also, Gerald's Game. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's on Netflix.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
That movie rules, in my opinion. At the end, it kind of falls off a little bit, but the rest of the movie, I'm just kind of like, oh, Is that dog gonna eat her face? You know,
She just did that to her hand.
Oh yeah. That scene. I had to pause and be like, ooh, like woozy. So
I need a cold towel.
Yeah. So okay. So kind of getting the vibe here. Alternatively, 1922 on Netflix, another Stephen King movie. Not as good. I'll admit it.
Good to know.
It's about a farmer who does a really bad thing, and after doing, and it was in order to save his farm, and from that day forward, he experiences the ramifications of that. It's the bones of it are really good, but in execution, it just isn't what it should have been. I can spoil it for you off mic.
Sounds good.
We can talk about it tonight. I assume the book was really good, but the telling of it just didn't really work. But yeah, so that does that about wrap things up? Is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, I think we hit it all. Short movie, short pod.
Yeah, I mean, we still hit an hour, I think, at least. So, thank you all very much for listening to this point, especially if you're down here already. This pod has been really fun, but the tricky thing is, KG, this was supposed to be like Oscar movie season. I don't know if we're going to be talking about many Oscar movies this year for the pod. We'll be talking about Black Panther, Wakanda Forever in November, correct?
Yeah, you gotta. What a trailer.
For real.
I need that song on my phone right now. Need that.
Yeah, that remix. Next month, though, it's a little tricky. I was kind of looking forward to talking some movies that we don't necessarily need to talk about. Is Black Adam next month?
Yeah, only in theaters, October.
Yeah, October 21. So if we wait a while, we can maybe talk Black Adam. We haven't spoken about a DC property in a couple months, and it'll be like a big blockbuster thing we could talk about. We could talk. It would be late, but we could talk Woman King maybe. When does The Whale? Do you know when The Whale comes out?
That I do not know.
December.
Yeah, The Fabelmans comes out in November, so we'll have to challenge ourselves a little bit for an October film.
I'm so excited for The Fabelmans. Ooh, that was like, inject that into my veins when I saw that trailer. But yeah, so I mean, maybe be on the lookout for a Black Adam pod. If we think of anything else, we'll change it. But I guess that's penciled in for what's coming. Are you excited for that movie? Yeah,
we'll see.
I think it has potential.
Look, I can only be hyped for so long. You can only tickle me in the right spot for so long until it's like, all right, what are we doing here? I'm saying is, if it's not a 10 out of 10, I'm going to be upset. I'm holding it to that standard. I'm on mic saying it. This has been hyped for too long. There's been too many over-the-giant back shots of The Rock watching the final cut. I need this thing to be like a pristine comic book film.
Well, I mean, the hierarchy of power within the DC universe is about to change. So.
Shut your mouth. Do not talk to me like that.
So you know what? Now I'm excited about watching the movie more than I was, just to see what this conversation's going to be.
I want to have a fight with you auditorily.
We haven't talked about a DC, universe movie since Zack Snyder's Justice League, which isn't even canon.
No, it's not.
So we haven't done this in a while.
And Warner Brothers regrets doing it. Who said that? What?
Yeah, that's so crazy. So I'm actually pretty hyped for it. Did we talk Wonder Woman?
I don't believe so.
I don't think so either.
And the sequel's dog shit.
I meant the sequel, so...
Well, there's my review. Not good.
So, I'm excited now for the Black Adam pod. Be on the lookout for that. Thank you very much for listening to this month's edition of the Sweaty Dive podcast. KG, people heard music at the beginning of this, and some more of that music is being made right now. Where can people find it and or find you?
Yes, sir. At Above the Moon Music. Our EP should be finished up between October and November, so hopefully that gets all dropped. Or LP, excuse me, long play. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, so.
Is that what that means?
Yep, that's basically it, long play. But it's a long one. It's like 14 tracks. So when it's done, shameless promotions will be coming.
Yeah, will be brought to you by Above the Moon. Okay, and you can find me on Instagram at BuffCharmander.GW, and you can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/GeeksWeekly. Again, thank you all very much for listening to this month's edition of the Sweaty Die Podcast. I hope that you are enjoying movies, and I hope that as the weather gets colder and people are going outside less, that you go out and support your local cinemas. We could use more of that, and maybe try to go see movies like Barbarian. Support some smaller stuff. It's good to see that type of stuff getting the top billing at the box office. And if there's any listeners out there who want to see more of KG watching stuff that he doesn't necessarily want to go see, let him know that we have to do an Avatar 2 pod.
Oh my god.
Just if you get one person that we don't know that says that to you, we have to do it.
That's fine. One person that I don't know, that you don't know.
Neither one of us. Like a random listener. If one was to DM you on IG and be like, "Yo, you gotta do that pod."
You have my word.
Especially because if they're listening this late, like we're long done with the review.
At this point, somebody has closed out of the app. They're making dinner.
Yeah.
Yep, you got my word. We'll do a 4-hour breakdown of why that movie's going to be mid.
Oh, man. All right. With that, let's get out of here. Once again, I've been Buff Charmander, joined as always by my good pal KG.
Until next time.
Stay safe and stay sweaty, my friends.